Well,
All
Health
right.
and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is making good on his promise to remove fluoride from American water systems. He says he's going to assemble a task force and stop the CDC from recommending that it be added to water. So this was a big campaign promise, and it may in fact be happening. We've been waiting, TikTok.
Yeah, and this is a huge win for the MAHA movement because that dangerous neurotoxin fluoride is about to be removed from America's drinking water, hopefully for good. And our next guest was the inspiration behind this. Yes, attorney Michael Connett was the lead attorney who just won that landmark fluoride case against the EPA. And the EPA, of course, was forced to basically admit that it had improperly approved this dangerous neurotoxin. In other words, the United States government knew that fluoride is a neurotoxin. They knew about it for decades and actively fought to keep that data suppressed. And attorney Michael Connett joins us now. Busy day, because I know everyone wants to talk to you because of your involvement in this and really being the inspiration, Michael, for RFK and pushing this at HHS. First, just at a high level, 30,000 foot level, how does this feel for you? This must feel amazing.
Yes, it does. I mean, certainly we've been looking for this with the new administration. And it was great to see yesterday that, Bobby Kennedy followed through and stated that he will be asking the CDC to stop recommending water fluoridation. And the CDC has been the main institution that communities have relied upon as the basis for fluoridating their drinking water. And so for the CDC to withdraw that recommendation is very significant.
And so does this mean then that states will have to follow through and remove fluoride from their water, or can they still say, no, we really want it there?
It will remain a local decision, a state decision. Utah, for example, just passed a bill to ban fluoridation. So no community in Utah can fluoridate its water anymore. Florida is currently deliberating on legislation that would also ban fluoridation across the state in Florida. We've seen dozens of communities in Florida over the past few months since the court issued its ruling finding fluoridation to be an unreasonable risk. We've seen dozens of Florida communities end their fluoridation programs. Just last week, Miami-Dade County, their county commissioners voted 8-2 to end all fluoridation programs there, which encompasses over 3 million people. So we are seeing significant developments over the past few months with communities across the country finally ending their water fluoridation programs, and in doing so, following the lead of most of Europe, which has already rejected fluoridation.
So many questions here, and I know people in our chat are asking about toothpaste, which we'll get to in a second, but I just want to stick on the fluoridation in the water piece of this. So Bobby Kennedy basically saying we're going to put together a task force to really kind of look at this. So, you've been fighting this for years. It's a neurotoxin, lowering the IQ in our children, the whole host of issues, of course. You can talk about how horrible it is, but why are we waiting? Like, why do we need a task force?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, at the end of the day, local communities and states, they don't need to wait. We know enough right now to end this program. I mean, there's a couple basic points. One, we know that you don't need to swallow fluoride, that any benefit that comes to your teeth comes topically, not through ingestion. So why are we still adding a chemical to the drinking water that you don't actually need to swallow? And that doesn't treat the water. Fluoride is the only chemical that we add to water that doesn't treat the water. It treats you, the consumer, with a drug. And in terms of the health effects, the National Toxicology Program at the federal government level has concluded that excess fluoride exposure lowers IQ. When we started fluoridating the water, that was not part of the bargain. The notion that we would add a chemical to drinking water that can lower IQ is just something that doesn't make any sense at all. And there is now a large body of scientific data showing that fluoride lowers IQ. And there's many other concerns as well, including fluoride's impact on the bones. There are high quality studies finding that fluoride increases the risk of hip fracture, particularly in postmenopausal women. There's studies linking fluoride to osteoarthritis, which is the most prevalent form of arthritis in the United States today, impacting millions of adults, costing our healthcare system billions of dollars. We have data linking fluoride exposure to reduced thyroid function and hypothyroidism, which is a serious condition that can affect health in many ways. So there are many red flags right there today in the peer-reviewed scientific literature. And local communities should be acting now, ending their fluoridation programs. There's no need to wait for the federal government to make its final decision. And follow the lead of Europe now, get it out of the water. And if you want to use fluoride, you can get it in toothpaste on the store shelves.
Now, one thing I thought of when I heard the term task force, I thought, oh, will we get full disclosure then? Because we have to look for this ourselves. I'm sure you're familiar with the research of Dr. Harold Carpenter Hodge, who was the lead scientist on the Manhattan Project, whose notes were kept from the American people showing that fluoride was a neurotoxin and could have been used in atomic bombs. And that was kept from the American people. So we've had this. We've had interaction with the American Dental Association. We've had all manner of suppression of data from government scientists, and in order to sell us the Manhattan Project. Do you think we'll get that? Will the American people really get the true story of how they used us as guinea pigs?
Well, I certainly would hope so at some point in time. I suspect this task force that Mr. Kennedy is putting together is probably going to be focused more on the current research regarding health effects, what we know today. But the point you made is a very important one. And that is, when you look at the history of this issue, and I've done that extensively, I've gone to national archives across the country, you find a pattern of data suppression where both government authorities as well as industries were suppressing what they knew about the hazards of fluoride exposure. And you referenced Dr. Hodge, who was one of the leading scientific architects of fluoride policies, not just water fluoridation, but occupational safety standards and whatnot. And Dr. Hodge did have a concern as far back as 1944 that fluoride can damage the brain, and he called for research to better understand that issue. And so there was a concern in the earliest days of fluoridation that fluoride could affect the brain. And we now know, based on the research that the National Toxicology Program has comprehensively reviewed, that fluoride does affect the brain and can affect neurodevelopment. And so
they've ruined people. They've ruined the careers of scientists who have said this since. The story of Felix Mullinex, for instance, they literally went to ruin people to keep this from us. And I don't know if there'll ever be accountability for that.
Well, that's a story that needs to be told. People need to understand that. This has been an exceptionally difficult issue for scientists to speak out on for decades. And, those scientists that did speak out on it suffered serious consequences to their career, including Phyllis Mullinex in the 1990s, who was fired after publishing a study showing that fluoride causes behavioral problems in rats. She's not the only scientist who has suffered that type of harm to her career. I think, fortunately, today we are seeing a safer space develop in the academic community, where you're seeing more scientists study this issue and speak out on this issue. And I hope to see more of that in the years ahead. And I certainly think that having the HHS secretary speaking out about the problems with fluoride exposure is going to further facilitate that scientific discussion.
Yeah, people are pointing out like Operation Paperclip and bringing Nazis into the United States, and they were fully aware of this fluoridation process, and we kept it hidden from the American people. But I promised our audience we'd talk about toothpaste. I was at our dentist not too long ago, a few months ago, and he said, "Oh yeah, I don't use fluoride at all." And he's like, "I wish more people knew about this." So the friggin' dentist is talking about fluoride, and yet you can just go to the store; it's all in our toothpaste. It's kind of hard to find good toothpaste that doesn't have it in it. So where are we at with that? And it's going to still sit on store shelves, but it won't be in our drinking water.
That's right. And I do think that at the end of the day, fluoride toothpaste makes the most sense in terms of, for those people who want to use fluoride, that's the best vehicle to use it, because you can brush it on your teeth and spit it out. But I do encourage everyone to read the poison warning that the FDA requires on the back of every fluoride toothpaste tube sold in this country, especially for families who have young children. Because we know that preschool children, for example, have a very difficult time spitting out what they put in their mouths, as parents out there will know. And so if you give a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old fluoride toothpaste, they're going to swallow pretty much all of what they put in their mouth. And that can be a huge exposure, a very significant exposure for some young children. And compounding that is you have companies like Colgate and Crest that market these fluoride toothpaste to young kids in a way that presents it like candy, like watermelon and bubble gum, and with cartoon packaging. And I think a lot of parents out there have no appreciation or idea how toxic these products are for their kids, because the product is sort of presented as uniquely safe for children when it's not. These fluoride toothpastes can pose real significant risk for a young child.
It's a great point.
Well, you can keep going down this rabbit hole. It's in the water that we give to our livestock that we eat. It's in the water that in many times that we water our plants and foods and vegetables with. It's in the chemical that makes Teflon. So if you buy nonstick pans, it's really hard to avoid, and it's just anxietizing once you start looking into it.
Yeah, the fluoride, we have been exposed to fluoride through many sources, including processed foods, processed beverages. It's one of the problems that comes about when you are fluoridating so many people's water supply. We fluoridate over 200 million people's water in the United States. And when you do that, you end up contaminating the food supply. And then, as you know, we also get fluoride from some pharmaceuticals. There's no government body out there sort of monitoring how much fluoride exposure are we getting from all these different sources. And we know enough to know that some people are ingesting far more than is safe. And, we really should be taking steps to reduce any source of fluoride that you ingest, because you don't need to ingest it. And there are serious health concerns from doing so.
I mean, this is like what villains do in movies, as someone pointed out in our chat here. Scarecrow did that in the Batman movies, put it in the water supply for Batman. I mean, it is villainous. It absolutely is villainous. Well, an American hero is Michael Conant, and I just want to thank you for your incredible work, because it takes a large amount of bravery to go up against, the EPA and then win. And now we're going to see this sea change here in the United States. And so I, for one, I'm thrilled about that. So, Michael, great to see you. Thank you so much for your work and continued amazing work on your end. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, he brings up a great point. I'm thinking about kids. Like, they don't know how to spit. So they're the ones that are most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And they're getting this mouthful of this stuff.
Think about it like a juice is made with water that has fluoride. Your medicines is made with water. So even if you get a home filtration system that will filter it out of the water you bathe and drink, it's still in the products that you buy. Go ahead, Philip.
Well, the whole thing is just really because they didn't know what to do with industrial waste, because that's the source of it. It's just diluted industrial waste.
Right.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that.
The American Dental Association actually didn't come up with this on their own. They were sold it. Right. It was not their idea.
So the byproduct of this, right, I think what the byproduct of the industrial waste, and fluoride was the byproduct of it.
Yes, in a lot of different industrial processes.
I think aluminum production and so forth. And so they're like, these companies are like, what do we do with all this excess fluoride? I know. Let's get approval from the government. We'll just dump it in the water. Actually, we'll sell it to the water supply companies.
Well, look, if you want to read a book about how it is related to the Manhattan Project and it poisoned entire communities in the manufacturing of the atomic bomb, read The Fluoride Deception. Crazy book. Will make you super paranoid, but you need to know this. I don't want to make you paranoid.
DuPont. Yeah, people are saying DuPont sold them the idea. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's really good stuff.